Hey guys, and welcome back. We are beginning section 2, which is learning to draw 2D geometry. And the first thing that I want to go into today about that is I'm going to talk about the sketch mode for a minute. Okay, Surfcam has a sketch mode. So if you go up to create, this is the list of types of geometry you can create. Now, some of these deal with 2D geometry, and some of them deal with 3D geometry. So, for the next few following tutorials, all we're going to be dealing with is the ones that are 2D geometry. Okay, creating 3D geometry will be in section 3. Okay, so the first thing we see is point. Alright, so if we click that, here are the different ways that we can create a point. Now, if we click on sketch, I don't know if you can see that the mouse cursor has changed. I don't know if you can see it from here, but if I zoom way out, then it creates when sketch mode has a grid. Okay, and it has snap locations. Each of these little plus signs is a snap location on the grid. And what that means is if you get close to it, you don't have to be precisely on it, but if you get close to it, it will snap to that location and create a point every time you click. Okay, now this grid only shows up in sketch mode, and you can set the distances of your grid coordinates. You can set them an inch apart, 2 inches apart, a half inch apart in X, in Y, however you would like to arrange them. Now the way you do that is you have to be in sketch mode. You have to have the grid on the screen. You right click. Okay, this is your snap grid feature. This will make it to where if I turn that off, then whenever I click, it just creates a point wherever my little pencil is there. Okay, if I turn it back on, then it's going to snap to the grid, and all I have to do is get close to these little grid points, and it puts it there for me. Alright, now this next tab is your snapping grid options. So if we open that up and take a look at it, these are the different things you can snap to. You can snap to endpoints, to midpoints, intersections, center points, quadrants, perpendicular points, tangent points, uh, pretty much everything. And this is how you display the grid or not, and if you want it to snap to the grid or not. These are two different grid types. And then here's the grid intervals. Right now it's set to be 1 inch intervals in X and 1 inch intervals in Y. And that's the default. That's what really no need to change that unless you had a particular reason to. Okay. Now this right here is your display multiplier. And what it does is it allows you to, let's say for instance, if you didn't want all of the grid points on the screen, you can set them at intervals where it will only have for 1 inch. If you multiply that by 2, it's only going to have a point every 2 inches in X. And if this was set to 2 at a 1 inch interval, it's going to have every 2 inches in Y. It just makes it where you don't have to see all of them if you didn't want to. Now this grid is something that I don't really use much as a programmer. It's not normally used when precise locations are required. It's just not. It's more for maybe performing demonstrations or maybe experiments, or just when you're just trying to learn Surfcam, as we are. Um, I really, in my day-to-day use of Surfcam, I don't use this hardly ever. Uh, but I did want to show it to you since I'm trying to be as thorough as possible while teaching this. Okay, so let's go ahead and get all these points off of our screen. Delete all those. Okay, now one other thing you can do with Sketch is you can set depths here. This little button up here. Okay, if I set a depth of 1 inch. Now, if I go back to create point in Sketch, with my depth at +1, wherever I create a point is going to be +1 inch in Z. Okay, as you can see, there's our Z0, and our points are at +1 inch. Alright, and the same thing, if you can be positive or negative. If I wanted to make it, if I wanted a point -2 inches, now obviously in top view you won't be able to see it, but when I create these 4 points, they are -2 inches in Z. Okay, and that's how you that's one way to set depths in sketch mode. Now, if I create a point, I'm going to use the keyboard for this and tell it an exact location. Let's say I create a point at 0, or at x0, y0, and 5 inches positive in Z. Okay, there's our point. Now you can also use this to set a depth from a selected location. Alright, so if I click this and I say OK, then Surfcam wants me to choose the location. If I click that point right there, then it sets my depth to +5 inches, because that's where this point is located. Okay, so really, I mean, my personal opinion, I don't think the grid feature is very useful. I can see how it would be beneficial in our case when we're just starting to learn drawing 2D geometry. But it's kind of annoying to me how it snaps, to certain locations, and it's not really for precise doing precise things. But that's only in sketch mode, so we won't have to worry about it much. You don't really use sketch mode a whole lot. Occasionally we will, but alright, anyway, so that is the snap grid, and I believe that will be all for this first tutorial on drawing 2D geometry. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go in order here of these. I'm going to leave out the ones that deal with drawing 3D geometry for now. We'll get to that in the next section. So the next tutorial, we've covered sketch. The next tutorial is going to be the different ways to draw a point. Alright, so tune in for that. I will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.